Hi, my name is Jamie Rue, and today I'm going to talk about The Sword of Summer by Rick Riordan. Rick Riordan is on fire lately. I mean, he's always kind of been on fire, like releasing one book a year, but still, oh my god. And now he's like releasing The Trials of Apollo in May. I had a few problems with this book. I really liked the book, though. The more of the problem I have right now is that Barnes & Noble apparently hates me. I had to order this off my library website. Like, this is not my book, this is a library book. I'm dying. I just want my book. Why? The Sword of Summer was confusing, but also a very good book. If you are not familiar with Norse mythology, you might be just a tad bit confused like I was, and you might not totally understand what's going on. That is the downside of this book, because there are a lot of gods and a lot of characters, and you're just gonna be sitting there like, what the heck is going on? That's what half of this book was for me. Like, who is this? Who is that? How do I pronounce this? And that is my main problem with this book. Because the Percy Jackson series and the Heroes of Olympus, I was fairly familiar with Greek mythology, and even if I wasn't, I reread it so many times that it just became something that I was familiar with, and then I read up on Greek mythology, and so now I have a background and an understanding of Greek mythology, so if I read anything about it, I know what's going on. I know nothing about Norse mythology. That's kind of a fault of mine, and kind of a fault of Rick Riordan, so I'm gonna go read up on Norse mythology and then reread this and see if any of it makes more sense to me. The main problem is, if you're an author, you should be trying to make sure that your readers understand. With the number of characters that were introduced that I am unfamiliar with, I was just like, I don't know who's who. And all the names are kind of odd, and I just don't, you can't expect me to know all of these gods, and obviously he didn't, because he did sort of explain who they all were, but it was still like information overload. I have no idea what the F is going on. That is my main problem with this book, is that I'm not totally sure what happened just because I'm not familiar with Norse mythology. Ugh. Overall though, it was a good book. It was funny, I still laughed. I just don't totally know what exactly happened, like name-wise. I can't tell you that character A, like, threw character B off a cliff or something like that. That didn't happen. But I can't tell you that kind of stuff, mostly because I don't know their names. So I know what happened, I just don't really know what happened. So I'm gonna have to go read up on Norse mythology and then read this again, is my conclusion right now. Or just read this 40,000 times like I did with The Lightning Thief, but I don't have time for that. So now, if you don't want spoilers, I'm going to suggest that you leave, because I'm gonna start ranting about this book, and it's gonna be super spoilery, so if you don't want spoilers, bye. Alright, was I the only one that was picturing Odin, Thor, and Loki from the Marvel movies? Because I was just like imagining Chris Hemsworth eating a goat, and I don't know, it was just not. And then also, Thor is kind of, I don't want to say a lazy bum, but kind of. And also, Loki is super evil, and Tom Hiddleston is how I pictured Loki. I don't know, I didn't even read what his description was, but Tom Hiddleston is Loki, and so I'm sorry, Rick Riordan, but I was picturing Tom Hiddleston. I really like that Annabeth was in this. I totally want to read the fanfictions that are undoubtedly going to happen, where Annabeth and Magnus Chase are like talking about their adventures and reacting in ways, and it would be like shitty fanfiction, almost definitely, but I just want to read it. I want to see what happens, because it's always, that kind of stuff is always funny. It's never anything it's never something that I expect to be good, but it's always hilarious, and I love it. I was actually fairly sad when Gunilla died. Was anyone else kind of like, oh my god? Because villain necessarily Gunilla, but she was a character who I did kind of care about, and she had motivation, and she was a good character, right? I totally didn't expect her to die. I was just like, no one's gonna die in this book. It's the first book. Oh wait, someone died. Gunilla was kind of like not a main character, but she was a pretty important character too, so I was totally not expecting her to die. Rick Riordan, stop killing people. Dude, Magnus's fear of wolves just like disappeared towards the end. I don't know what the frick happened, but like before he was like hyperventilating about wolves, and now it's just like, nah man, I'm just gonna stand in front of this wolf and like throw my sword at it. I didn't like that. I felt like he should have still had some panic laced through. Jack, why would you name the Sword of Summer Jack? First of all, The Sword of Summer is hilarious, but also it feels like a crack fic, where you're just like, the sword talks and he's also hilarious, and why. And Rick Riordan has now coined swords that turn into other things because Jesus Christ, Jack is a pendant now. Oh, and I love that little crack they made about, oh, how stupid would it be for like a sword to turn into a pen. I love any reference that Rick Riordan makes to his other books because it's meta jokes and they're just funny. Like Magnus Chase and Percy Jackson and like the Kane Chronicles, they're all in the same world, and so just if Rick Riordan makes any reference to his other books, it's just funny. One of the chapters is called Hearthstone Passes Out Even More Than Jason Grace, though I have no idea who that is. And can I tell you what the dedication on this book is? I don't even know if you can see that, but it says, to Cassandra Clare, thanks for letting me share the excellent name Magnus. First of all, have you read The Mortal Instruments, Rick Riordan? I need to know this information. Second of all, Magnus Bane. Speaking of Magnus Bane, did anyone think about Magnus Bane when Blitzen was doing that whole fashion thing? Because I thought about Magnus Bane. Because I don't know, Magnus Bane and fashion just kind of like meld in my mind together. If I think the word fashion, Magnus Bane pops up. I really like Blitzen's whole story about how he wanted to be a fashion designer and no one took him seriously, and now he's gonna get to open up his own shop, and Blitzen was a good character. But Hearthstone was so sad. Oh my god. I loved Hearthstone because his whole story, his whole everything was just super sad. He gets a happy ending at the end and it's just nice. You know who I don't really care about though is Sam. Great for you. You're a Valkyrie again, or I don't know however the heck you pronounce that word. I guess it's great, but I just didn't really care at all about Sam. It's like you're just there. You don't really need to be there. You're just in the general vicinity. I liked that she wasn't Magnus's love interest though. I was excited about that because I don't need this in my life where, again, like the main girl is with the main guy. I kind of like that it wasn't like that. But I like that she's super girly crushy about this other random dude whose name I forget. I haven't been talking much about Magnus himself, and that's just because he feels like many other Rick Riordan characters of like jokey and funny, and he reminds me of Percy Jackson, but not because he's less angsty than Percy Jackson and also apparently not as much of a fighter. And so he doesn't feel totally like Percy Jackson, but he reminds me so much of Percy that I was kind of annoyed with him. If you look at the text, he wasn't really like Percy, but I don't know, man. He just reminded me of Percy. I didn't like Magnus as much as I liked other characters. He was a lot less angry than Percy though. When he meets his dad at the end, he just runs up and hugs him. I liked that. That was cute. Odin showing up at the end was so strange because I expected Odin to show up at the end because he's the Allfather. He's the most important person. I expected him to show up in the freaking like third book, which is the last one because this is a trilogy. So I was expecting him in the last one and it didn't happen. He just like appeared in the first one, and I don't know what else the series is gonna be about now. They all got kind of happy endings. I have no idea what else you could write about them. You could leave it at the first book and never read or write anymore, and it would be perfectly fine. I would be confused for the rest of my life, but like you could just leave it at this book. You don't need another one, which is kind of infuriating. Or I guess they're gonna lead up to like Doomsday, whatever, like Ragnarok. I can't pronounce that word, but I guess that's what they're leading up to. I'm looking forward to Doomsday, by the way, because I want to see if Magnus Chase becomes more of a fighter, because all they say is that Sons of Frey can't fight, and I want to see Magnus Chase prove them wrong, even though mostly his sword is the one that fights. His sword just kind of like whizzes around, stabbing everybody. Okay, so I kind of want to see where this story goes, because it's like, what else can you do with this? I don't know what else he is going to be able to do, because I think he wrapped it up pretty well with this book. I don't know. They all got happy endings, but I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm also super psyched for Trials of Apollo. Alright, so I'm going to go read up on Norse mythology now. Bye!